in covering natural law, in covering what I would consider to be real spirituality and real fundamental internal change in the human mind and heart. And you're really getting into explaining to people the world of the occult and the psychology of the occult world, of specifically the dark occult world, the enemy, which is what we really have to understand. We have to grasp their mindset. If we're sitting across from another chess player and we don't understand their basic mindset, their strategies, what they usually employ, their techniques, we're going to be playing somebody completely cold and going into a battle blindfolded. I really like that you are covering the psychology of these dark occultists and helping people to understand that they're trying to inculcate the world into their religion at a lower level, which is something that I've been saying for years. And your work is shifting more toward that and the spiritual domain and natural law. And I find that is tremendous. And again, your recent video on natural law, that blew me away too. Just fantastic work. And I think you're going to reach a whole, not even a whole new audience, but you're going to take the existing audience that you're already reaching and you're going to move them further along. And that's what I see your work doing. So I want to thank you for that. And I'd like you to speak about, like, again, some of the factors that led you to begin going in that direction and where you plan on taking that type of material in the future.
Well, thank you. And it was, you can see that people are hungry for it, because if you look at the last few videos I've done, I was kind of focusing on January 6th, and a lot of those didn't get that many views. And the natural law, just in less than 24 hours, it's already up to almost 300,000 views there. So you can tell people are hungry for that. One of the main things for me was, like I was saying, I can see this moving into something that normally wouldn't be acceptable. The good cop, bad cop. I don't know what that is. I'm not the dumbest guy in the world, but I am a human, so I have my limitations. And usually it's hindsight where I can figure things out when it's too late. So I don't know where it's going, but I have my theories. And one of the things that it does seem like it could be moving is some type of new holy war. Because, as the pendulum swung hard to the left, it could very easily swing hard to the right. And you can see the Christian right. You can see that if I were to make a guess, maybe I am a paranoid, not schizophrenic, a paranoid conspiracy theorist. But, I would even argue it almost seems like the evangelicals and the Zionists could possibly be behind a lot of the left, because they're getting ready for this swing to the right. And up until this time, I've been reluctant to challenge religion, honestly, just to not offend people, as lame as that might sound. But now that I see it going in this direction, I think it's very important to offend people and to challenge people in this, because for example, in the natural law, if you read the comments, you'll see a lot of people already saying I'm going to burn in hell because I mentioned the Buddha and stuff like that. And I didn't tell everyone, you just got to get on your knees and worship Jesus Christ and stuff like that. I don't see it like that. I'll be honest. I see, if you worship Jesus Christ, I think, it's idolatry. I think Jesus is a teacher, and it makes the whole thing kind of makes sense to me in that sense. But a lot of people don't see that. And the problem, what I would ask them is, what are you going to do with all the people that don't agree with you? Like you're in this gang, you're in this tribe, and you guys have all decided you're right. What are you going to do with the rest of us? What's your plan for the rest of us?
See,
because they have a lot of.
No, go ahead.
Go on.
I was going to say, see, I see it very similarly to that. I have no problem with people believing in whatever religious view that they want to take, as long as they're not trying to force that on other people. Let's get the understanding of natural rights correct, and let's respect actual point of fact, objective morality. And then anything beyond that you want to envision in your mind, that you want to believe in, that you want to worship, I personally don't care, because as long as we're on the same page regarding objective morality, then you understand not to initiate harm against anybody else or try to force beliefs on anybody else. The thing we do have to get on the same page about is what objective morality is. And I see it the same way. And I've heard a lot of, I don't want to use the word angst, but like a lot of very serious concern exactly what you just said, that because the pendulum has swung so far to the left, when it comes back and swings back to the right, we could be seeing religious insanity. We could be seeing things from the religious right that is going to be like the pendulum swinging to the left with all of these radical leftists and communists thinking that, well, we're just completely taking over. Could that happen from a theocratic standpoint, from the point of view of a potential theocracy trying to come in and take over? It's a very valid concern. It's something that we have to be vigilant for, because that's what these occultists want to do. They want to create dialectics and then extreme polarities. That keeps the focus away from them and what they're doing, and it keeps us fighting and warring with each other. So again, I think you're spot on there with that concern, and it's something that while I may not have brought up a whole lot in my past shows, I think it's something that I hear from a lot of people, and it's something that should definitely be discussed as another potential trap and another potential, dialectic that we have to be very vigilant of not falling into.
I agree. And I agree with what you said about the beliefs. Like, for example, I mean, personally, I was born into this world with God, and from a very young age, I internally had a very close relationship with Christ. And the thing is, for me, is I've always found that to be so deeply personal. When anyone at all questions me on it, I take offense, And like you said, it's really about our actions. It's got nothing to do with our beliefs. I have certain beliefs that I think some people could argue might be superstitious, but it really comes down to live and let live and leave people alone. And it just makes so much sense to me. In a sense, it takes the anger out of it. Like, I'm not mad at anyone. Like, I can see how the dark occult in their own way are doing God's work. I don't believe that the God that I believe in has no nemesis. There is no threat to God. So I almost see like the experience we're in now as a school that we're in, and we're learning how to be responsible with, our thoughts and our intentions and our actions. And this dark occult, I would never want their job. Don't get me wrong. It's very dark and ugly, but in a way, they are providing us the suffering and the struggle and the, they're poking us with a fiery prod to get us to eventually come to these realizations and wake up. That's how I woke up. I woke up from falling in enough traps and getting hurt enough to where I kind of figured out what was going on and stopped doing it. So
same thing for me.
I think we can even rise above our anger.
Exactly. Same exact thing for me. I had to go into the darkness enough to find the light. I had to get hurt and my life go in a bad direction to reevaluate things and make the acknowledgement that I was incorrect in my life path. So I agree, from a soul level perspective, that is a good and healthy way to see it. So where do you see the potential unfolding of this information in reaching people, or a potential what I might call an occult revival, or other people would call a mass awakening spiritually? Where do you see that potential progress of a movement like that, or of a just a dynamic like that in the world? Where do you see it now? Where do you see it going into the near future?
I, for whatever reason, feel rather optimistic. I can't say why, because if you look at the external situation, there's really nothing good going on. Everything looks very bad. But for whatever reason, I do gauge some of it by like comments I read on the videos. Since I have a large reach, I definitely always read the comments to see where people are coming from. The natural law video, while a lot of people are obviously triggered by it, I see more people that are excited and refreshed about the information, because the good thing about focusing on the specifics of natural law is it brings us together and it clears division. And so I do see an actual awakening of people waking up. It's definitely going to have its challenges. And I don't know why I feel good about it, but I I feel like we are moving into a better time. I feel like the awakening will continue. I do believe, for example, one of the biggest hurdles people have to get over is to get over our superstition. For whatever reason, humans are very prone to superstition. And one of these superstitions is the idea that knowledge is evil or symbols are evil somehow, when in fact, that's obviously superstitious. Symbols are you can encode information in a symbol, but a symbol by itself is just a symbol. It is what you think it is. Knowledge is, I don't see how you can argue that knowledge is evil, right? Especially when you actually try it out and do some research and look at what this knowledge is and actually, practice it in your own life and find that it's true, and find out that really what this knowledge is simply the actual science of nature, of where we live, of the realm that we're in.
That's exactly right.
It's much more important and profound science than the science you're going to learn in school, which science you're going to learn in school is mostly lies. It's mostly made up nonsense that was peer reviewed by a few people, and they stamped their approval on it and said, okay, this nonsense is now a fact, So I think the more people understand to get over these superstitions and and I think one of the most profound things I've heard you say in your work is if a person doesn't cross the line of courage, then they'll fall for every lie.
That's right.
And that's what I see happening in the alternative media. You can fight an enemy and not have courage. You don't need courage to fight an external. All you need is fight or flight response. That doesn't require any courage. But in order to go within and face your own ego, you need that courage. You need to turn off fight or flight. In fact, you can't face your own ego with fight or flight, because your ego has the power to make you feel insane. It's your mind basically, and it knows you. Like, I think the ego is more like an operating system for the body, but it's extremely powerful, and it knows you better than you know yourself in most cases, and it can make you feel emotionally rotten. So you need to be able to deal with. That's the ultimate Satan, I think, is the one within. Once you can deal with that, then you can start seeing
it
clearly.
Can take over and act as the internal adversary if we don't keep it in check and use it for its true intended purpose. If we let it run amok, that's when it becomes a very damaging influence. Let me ask you an addendum to that question based on something that you just said. You said that many have been giving you some flack about the recent natural law video that you put out, which I thought was like incredible. And just that is the kind of work that we need far more of out into the ethers. Do you think it's just because they have these very entrenched religious beliefs that they're not willing to see from a different perspective? Like, no one is saying God doesn't exist, right? We are acknowledging the existence of the creator of the universe. We're also acknowledging that the creator's laws are paramount, that is the most important thing that anybody can actually understand, but we have to get to a correct understanding of them as a civilization. If we don't, we're going to perish. And that's the basic message. The basic message is this is like a learning classroom. This is something that, we have our lower grade levels, and you can look at that as that's nursery school, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. And religious traditions are like almost at that level of understanding, where it's very, very simple, made ultra, ultra, ultra simple, and told from the perspective of parables and stories that a child might gravitate toward. And then you need to go a little bit further, and then you need to get into a more accurate understanding of mathematics and science, and a deep understanding of how the laws of reality actually function. And then you're going to get into physics, you're going to get into higher level mathematics, higher level physics. And then, we'll master the understanding of this stuff so that we're not basically operating blindly. We're not putting actions into the world that are going to ultimately dictate the quality of our reality. And we're going to be doing that totally unconsciously. That's what we're trying to get past. We're trying to get past that level of nursery school, kindergarten, first grade, where it says, just believe this stuff because, oh, it'll keep you in line. And we're getting to a point where we have to get to the understanding this is how the law really works. And we're going to willfully align ourselves to it from a perspective of knowledge. And as you said, knowledge is neither good nor bad. The dark occultist could be using knowledge for evil and manipulation and slavery and, covert influence for the negative. But knowledge could also be used for the positive. I don't understand where particularly the Christian community and the religious community as a whole has basically put this very negative spin on the idea of knowledge itself, and having faith take total dominance over it. I don't see where that is ever really said in true Christianity. I don't think that Jesus, if he were actually incarnate in the flesh again, would have ever said, throw knowledge out. As a matter of fact, when in the scriptures, in the New Testament scriptures, when his disciples ask him, what is the thing that we require above all else to really be free? They knew that they were slaves then. They were talking about the Roman authorities basically keeping them in servitude under their law. And when Jesus was asked biblically in the New Testament scriptures, what is required for us to become free? He didn't say, start a religion, worship me, do all these weird rituals. The very simple answer was to know the truth. Literally the words, the prescription for being free that Jesus gives his own followers, his own disciples in the New Testament is the three words, know the truth. Just think about the profound aspect of that. That implies that knowledge is what is needed, that it is not about blind belief and blind faith and just worshiping someone as a deity, etc. It is about knowing what the truth of our reality is, what our situation is, knowing our psyche, knowing the laws of nature, knowing the true laws of the Creator. And that will make us free. It's a very simple prescription, and it's right there. Why do you think it's so distorted in the religious traditions, particularly in Christianity? Why can't modern day Christians see a simple truth that is right there laid out very plainly for them to see, and also see we're not standing in contradiction of any of the true moral teachings of Christ? As a matter of fact, we're trying to bring that forward and make the world understand that. It's not to attack that message. It's to attack what the church has distorted that message into about religious dogma and blind faith and all kinds of other things that are not going to lead to the solution. Could you speak to all of that? I know I gave you a lot there, but I'd like to get your perspective on that.
I think the biggest problem I see with Christianity is the belief in prophecy. I don't see any evidence in the Bible. First of all, I think it's important to know that the Bible, the English translation of the Bible, was written by a council secret society. It's right on their front page. It's not hidden. But there is nothing, but I love scripture and I enjoy the Bible, but I don't see anything in the Bible that says that prophecy is anything. There's just, what there is there are humans, modern humans, that have spun this idea that that's what the book of Revelation, they pulled out pieces of the Bible that could be interpreted in many different ways. There are preterists who believe, I happen to have it right here. There are preterists that believe that back in AD 70 was when all that book of Revelation stuff happened, and there's pretty decent evidence there. But the point being is that it's become a whole cult where people are convinced now, and you can see it's being used against them. Like when the government uses like 666 all the time, they're trolling people. They're using that, I think, to spin the superstition more, because talk about a Q psyop. The prophecy psyop is convincing people that they have to let this happen, that the only way Jesus is going to come back is for all this to happen. So they're just sitting. There are people that want it to happen. There are plenty of people. I've seen a documentary on this of people who want all this stuff to play out because they think it has to. That I think is a big problem. Why is that? That comes back to the ego. It really does. Because, you know, in yoga, we would call it the spiritual ego. In yoga, there's just as many people, crazy people as in any other religion or whatever, where people, they get so far where all of a sudden their ego convinces them that they're cured or they're enlightened or whatever. And then they're more dangerous than they were before, because now they think that they're all taken care of and they're all good and they're all fixed. I would argue that the most important thing to do to find the truth is to learn to shut up. You know, learn to simply turn your mind off. It takes a lot of practice. It took me years to be able to get to do it. And once you can shut up, then you can sense this indescribable, I like the term the silent witness. I think that's a pretty good descriptor of what it is. This part of you that's just as much a part of you as the ego. You know, the ego is not bad. It just needs to be shut up. And then you can observe this other part of you that seems to just be always there, always observing. It seems to be sort of related to your conscience. And from this quiet perspective, now you can actually start seeing the truth, or at least getting a better glimpse of it. And what I found is that the Gnostic teachings of Samael Aun Weor I really appreciate, because one of the things he says is, he basically says, in order to find the truth, first you want to study all different religions and look for the commonalities, not the differences. Once you find the commonalities, now you're getting closer to the truth. But in the end, you ultimately need to quiet your mind and measure it, you know, weigh it against your heart. Ask your higher self or your inner self or whatever you want to call it. And even then, you always have to keep a level of humility and understand, you know, that's what you learn once you fall in a trap enough times, you start figuring out, okay, I'm prone to falling in traps and stuff. So, I mean, really, I think it really does come back to the same thing, that these people are de facto Satanists and they don't even know it. They've allowed their ego to convince them that they have it all figured out. And so now that they have it all figured out, they're not looking within. They're not even really looking into anything else, because they have it all figured out. They know the answer. And so they're just finding external enemies. And if they have it all figured out, that means that basically anyone who doesn't feel the same way that they feel is now part of the problem. And it's a mess. I don't know how you do that. In a lot of ways, I think all the crazy stuff that's happening in the world is one of their best opportunities, because I know for me, suffering and struggling actually has helped me wake up, you know, out of, I guess, a place of desperation of, you know, you have to, you know, the pressure helps. I don't know if that's a solution. I think ultimately it comes down to, you know, what you were saying about once you kind of at least get enough of a grasp that, you know, the power of the mind and how we're being fooled, you have to do your best to go out there and help other people figure it out.
That's
no matter what.
Exactly it is taking real world action. And, you know, I just want to add an addendum to what you said regarding people who are in that religious mindset. The key of what they have done is they have externalized their power to another entity / deity / religious institution. And if you don't internalize your power and you're giving it away to somebody else, you're always going to be at the mercy of external forces. And that's not helping people to use their innate ability to look at the world and observe. And as you said, emptying the mind of thought, quieting the mind through meditative practice, through, discipline over our thoughts, helps us to make the mind ready to receive. Again, if I handed someone a full glass and they take the full glass from me and I say, okay, now we're going to pour more liquid in that glass. You're not going to pour any more liquid in that glass. The glass is already full. You have to empty it in order to pour more liquid, in quote unquote liquid information into the glass, the mind, in order to receive knowledge, in order to receive understanding, in order to get the potential for real world right action, which is wisdom. And that's the ultimate long-term goal. I think that religious people could learn this. They have to stretch the horizons of their thinking past dogmatic rigidness. Like, it's got to be this way, that's it. Dogmatic rigidness is not going to help you see the ultimate answer, the ultimate solution. And again, you can even hold on to some beliefs that are not harmful, right? So, but if you want to believe Jesus Christ is, God incarnate, that's not a harmful belief so long as it's not forced onto other people, as long as you understand natural law and the non-initiation of force against your fellow human beings that aren't initiating force against anybody else. As long as we're on that basic page together, common sense, knowledge of objective morality, religious beliefs can go in any direction they want as long as they're not harmful, as long as they're not like the kind of beliefs of Satanism with eugenics of we're going to become the masters of the world and kill whoever we want because we have the right to control the gene pool like that. That's a harmful belief. That's not a religious belief that someone is entitled to. That's not a right, but general good-hearted religious people, I think, have just made one fatal error, and that is the externalization of the power of their mind to another entity or institution. If they reclaim that power and they really go further, they take it from nursery school, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and they say, okay, we're going to go all the way up through the top of elementary school, into high school, into college, into higher learning, get our master's degree. And that is the understanding of the science of how the laws of the Creator work. I say it all the time to people. Do you think the Creator of the universe tantalizes us and tortures us with unknowable knowledge, with, I'm going to make the laws of the universe this way and you will never be able to understand or know them? No. With enough work, that's what working on ourselves is. We're building the soul to a higher level of complexity and understanding and freedom, etc. If we're not doing that work, we're not doing what we're here to do. We're not hearing what the Creator here. We're not doing here what the Creator would prefer that we would do, which is advance and enhance our souls. We're just staying stagnant and saying, I just accept this rigid belief and I'm staying right here and I'm not going to progress and I'm not going to evolve in consciousness and in understanding and in morality. I think that we may be able to reach people like that if we help them to understand we're not viciously and vehemently attacking even the idea of Jesus, but we're just saying you have to step out of kindergarten and you have to go up to a higher level of understanding. And that higher level of understanding is natural law. It is the laws of the Creator of the universe that in the biblical scriptures, that is what the Jesus figure is trying to convey and get other people to understand. Your take on that?
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's also they're putting their faith in people, like the heads of their church. Like even in the Christian community, they're all arguing. The Catholics are saying they're right, and the Orthodoxes are saying they're right, and the Protestants, and there's all these differences in there and everything. And someone explained it to me really good. I was questioning the whole idea of why it's so important for people to believe that the phrase, do you accept that Jesus Christ died for your sins? And because to me, I never understood that, because to me, I understood that Christ was teaching you how to live. And someone answered it to me in a way that made sense to me very recently. It was the first time it made sense to me. They said, a lot of people visualize the whole thing of his suffering on the cross, and they accept it so heartedly that they feel a sense of overwhelming emotional gratitude for the pain that Christ endured, that they are completely beholden or in feeling in debt or and that makes sense, and I believe that, because I do believe that I believe that deep down inside, people are genuinely good people and stuff. And so I think people feel so strongly about that they get offended when other people don't. They get offended because they're like, don't you realize what Christ has done for you? You know, that kind of thing. And I think ultimately, I believe, and this is why, I mean, like I said, I'm very lucky that I feel like I came into this world with God. Like I've always had a relationship, a personal relationship with God, and I just kind of assumed everyone else did. What I believe, one of my favorite things is to say is God is love, love is God. I ultimately believe that. I believe that ultimately what God wants for each and every one of us is to expand, like you were saying, for our soul to expand in a loving state of joy and peace and bliss. And that's what natural law will lead us to. That's how we get there. Just like, you know, I'm starting to question everything, including our past, because I'm just starting to learn some things recently where it's like, who knows what's real? But the story of our founding fathers and the Republic, whether that's how accurate that is or not, it doesn't matter. The story of, you know, you have a republic now, if you can keep it, and you look into what that means, it means, and also the pursuit of happiness. That's what ultimately, I think that's what God wants for us, is to learn to leave each other alone and respect each other so that we can then expand on an individual level and understand why we're here. I do believe everyone has a path and a purpose. And I mean, I've been recently experiencing a more meaningful life than I've ever had in my life, to the point where I don't even need to try to be grateful. Gratitude is like a superpower. The more grateful you are, the more your soul will expand, and the more you'll understand love and feel love. And I remember a time in my life, a more dark time in my life, where I had to make lists of things I was grateful for and make an effort. Past few years, it's as soon as I wake up in the morning, I'm like, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you. You know, because I'm living my best life. And I honestly think that's the purpose of all of this. As dark as it might seem sometimes, the purpose of all of this is through this process of suffering and rebirth, and is realizing that. And so I don't know how you get there, but for example, if, like you were talking about de facto Christians, if you meet, say, a Buddhist who's practicing the same exact things, and he's practicing natural law, and he's not harming anyone, and they might be, you could say they're acting very Christ-like even. What problem do you have?
That's
with
the
that,
way I
you know?
try to live my life, you know, to the extent that I am able as a generally flawed human being. Do not initiate aggression. There won't be a problem. It's amazingly simple when you really think about it. It is the golden rule in the apophatic sense. It's don't do unto others that which you don't want done unto yourself. It's so simple that I think the simple elegance of it confuses people, because they think the answer is so much more complex than it really is. And, you know, exactly. There can be a de facto Christian. I don't need to express myself, to describe myself, I should say, as a religionist. You know, I express myself as a spiritual being, you know, having a physical experience in the 3D realm, to learn and to grow in consciousness. But I don't need to say I'm this or that or the other thing. I don't need to put a label on it. I think that's what people do so much, that it acts as a block for their consciousness. It's ego identification. You're putting a label on the ego, and you're identifying so much as that the slightest variation from that means, oh no, that thing has to be challenged. Folks who are listening to this interview understand we're trying to put out the word about the laws of the creator of the universe. As you said, quite rightly, the natural law, it's the laws of the creator, and the creator is love. It wants us to understand how to maximize our experience in the physical domain here on earth. And it wants us to experience freedom and goodness and love, etc. I just like to say the creator is truth. It's cosmic truth. The creator is cosmic truth. The creator is cosmic love. The creator is cosmic law. It is all of those things in one. That's the real trinity that the creator is. It's cosmic truth, cosmic love, cosmic law. And, you know, if we elevate our understanding to that perspective, to that level of consciousness, we could defeat the tyranny that we are in rapid order, in rapid succession. I think if consciousness grows to understand those things. Greg, I just want to say that I appreciate what you are doing to really try to bridge that understanding for people. I know that the Infowars/Band.video audience is a largely religious community of people as a whole in general. And again, yes, you know, we're attempting to reach out to them in a way that doesn't alienate them. I'll be doing this when I start putting content up on my Band.video channel. I think the first thing I'm going to post is my natural law documentary, and then some other presentations, seminars that I've done, my natural law seminar, etc. I would love the whole Infowars audience to take in that material and learn from it. And then I'll be doing some exclusive Band.video content as well, you know, specifically for that channel in the near future, in the not too distant future. I'd like to ask you, what do you think of the idea of we attempt as much as possible, and I'm not just saying like we're enacting any kind of a partnership. I'm just saying, what do you think of the idea that content creators such as ourselves attempt to build that bridge between the religious community and the understanding of natural law, the people who have understood it from that higher, what I would call scientific level perspective of cosmic law? I would like to do that as a member of Band.video. What do you think of that whole idea of that endeavor?
I mean, 100%. I agree completely. In fact, this conversation we've had has made me even start recognizing, for example, that maybe it's made me look at my own language and realize as we're talking, I do need to remember to be a little more compassionate, because what I'm realizing is that the reason people are closed off like this and the reason people allow their ego to control them is trauma. I experienced some childhood trauma that affected my entire life. It put me on the path I'm on, and it also put me on a destructive path that I had to deal with. That's the inner work I had to do. And I tend to be a very open person. I always have been. And so I've shared this story with several people in my life. And I would say more than half the people I talk to have responded by saying that they've also experienced similar childhood trauma. And that's when you take into account that most men aren't going to admit that, I would say the numbers are pretty high. And I'm a fairly social person, so I've talked to I've heard a lot of people tell me this. And so I'm fairly convinced that this is what's ultimately keeping people from doing the work, is that they are afraid, whether they know it or not. They won't admit that they're afraid. They're afraid to look within because there is a part of them that knows what's there. For example, my experience, I knew when I finally dealt with it, it was like you could describe it as a missing memory or a forgotten memory, but it wasn't really. I actually knew it about it the whole time. My mind was able to ignore it. It's a very, very strange experience when you discover this. And I've talked to other people that have too, and they would agree. And so I think this is the most important work. Yeah. And it really has brought my attention back to almost like a full circle where, David Icke was right the whole time. David Icke had it right. The only way anything's going to change is a spiritual awakening, is for everyone to grow spiritually. And first and foremost, that means healing from their wounds. We need to enter an era where we are focusing on these positive things rather than focusing on the darkness. For the past, in my work, I've tried to avoid it, but I'll admit I'm definitely shifting my work. I definitely feel like I'm at a crossroads of this. I do feel like in the past, I kind of was made a puppet out of this whole thing. I sort of was in the process of trying to wake people up. I have focused on some very dark subjects. I want to shift that more into something more productive. It could be done in so many ways. I was speaking to an intelligent guy, an Iranian who's the head of the Iranian populist movement, and I asked him, how can we wake the herd up? What can we do about all these brainwashed people? And his answer was the art. And at first I didn't understand that, because in America, our art has become something else. It's propaganda. Right. There is no art here anymore. And so this is something that anyone can do. If you're a creative, there is a way of just expressing yourself. If you have healed, if you have experienced any kind of trauma or any suffering, or you've had an awakening, just by sharing your story in any way, whether it be by giving lectures like you do, or videos like I do, or writing songs, or whatever, you, by expressing it, and I would even argue that if you're doing it in a way that's fulfilling to you, then you're actually generating frequencies of love and compassion. You're putting it out in the world, and we all have to be doing that, really. But it's time, in my opinion, to start focusing on each other and each other's pain in whatever way we can, and kind of start getting away from this whole amplification of darkness. Yes. It's like, it's good to look into the darkness to learn, but at a certain point, it almost seems like you're playing into their plan.
Yeah, you can't stay there. You have to understand it. And then you have to move on to, what can we do to actually change the manifestation we are experiencing? And see, that's why I call natural law good news. It's not a bad message. It's a powerful, positive message that we are getting exactly what we have put out into the world in the aggregate. The human race, see, the universe is not broken. It's functioning elegantly and perfectly, because we're getting the result of, collectively, what we have been putting out into the world. And in that sense, it acts like a perfect mirror for our experience. We act, we behave in the world, and then natural law responds and says, well, if that's the quality of your behavior, this is the quality of your experience. So we're getting what we quote unquote deserve as a civilization, as a people, as a species. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not negative news, right? That's actually great news, because then who has the ability to change the quality of the behavior that we're putting out in the world? We do. We are not electronic machine puppets that someone presses a button and a behavior comes out of the person. That's what they want. They want to make the world that. They want to make it an inescapable electronic prison cell, that they press a button and a being behaves a certain way, like a computer program responds to a button being pressed. They certainly are not at that level yet. They want to get there through mind control, and they want to get there through direct control over the physiology of the body through drugs and electronic means. Certainly, that's part of their agenda. But the good news regarding natural law is, we have free will, and if we use it wisely, we can change the quality of our behavior and then change the quality of our collective experience here on Earth. If we want to abdicate that responsibility, if we want to claim it doesn't exist, if we want to do all kinds of things to shirk the personal responsibility that we have for changing ourselves for the better, then there will be a negative outcome. But the understanding of how that dynamic functions is very powerful, positive news that, honestly, when I just even state it, it makes me feel good that it works like that, because that is the absolute brilliance and love of the creator of the universe. Why would it not set things up like that, that we can actually, quote unquote, control the direction, control the flow, etc. And if we want to learn how it works, we'll do better, and we'll experience better and greater things and higher levels of freedom and unfoldment of consciousness. If we don't, engage with the natural law like that, and we want to remain ignorant, and we want to just continue to create totally unconsciously, then the creator says, well, if that's how uncomfortable you are in stepping up and putting on the big boy pants and learning how things really work, You can stay where you're at for as long as you want. But don't expect that to be necessarily too comfortable, because, if you're a 23-year-old human being still sitting in kindergarten or nursery school, let's say nursery school, even in a diaper, that's not good progression as an adult. A 3-year-old may belong there, but and even that would be questionable if they haven't actually learned to use the bathroom properly. But the whole point is, that we have to progress at a steady, legitimate pace. And I think that the understanding of natural law is one of the most positive messages possible for human beings to grasp and to recognize. And it puts that darkness into perspective. It's like, well, you've allowed this to go on and sometimes condoned it and sometimes cooperated with it. So do you expect a good result? And then if you understand how natural law works, you would immediately say, well, clearly not. That this is working perfectly as the law of the creator of the universe. Once we grasp its understanding, I think, that positivity in the understanding of how our world is structured, people will no longer see it as just chaotic happenstances, all blending and meshing together. They're going to see it as elegant function that is exactly as things are intended to work, and it's exactly as they are set up to work. So, I'm really, really happy to hear that your work is going to be heading in that direction in the future. Already is. The recent videos, like I said, are spot on and very profound and powerful, especially when it comes to the aesthetics. Let me shift gears and ask you about your work in that regard. How do you go about your aesthetic work, the look of your work? Because your work has a profound, striking look. I also share that regard, and I think that aesthetics are important. I think the way you conduct your production values, etc., has an effect on the mind. It has an effect on the psyche. And that is what you're talking about in this last segment about art, right? When your friend said to you, do the art, perform the art, that's what real alchemy work in the modern day is. It is, we are here to be creators with a small c. Be creative, do art, make music, make poetry. But whatever you do, if you're going to make a podcast or videos like your great work, like you do in your great work, just speak out. The voice is the ultimate creative thing. It's a weapon in the war for information. And we're having a technical glitch here. Hold on. Let me see if I can clear that up. There we go. All right. So I don't know whether that was a loose cable or not. I just seem to be able to correct it. So I just wanted to get out there and get your take on this. The power of the human voice. The universe is spoken into existence. If we're not speaking out, we're not really doing the work that we're here to do. We have to put our voices out there in some aspect. And again, as you said, that could take a myriad of forms creatively through different art forms. Your response to that?
Yeah, when I was like back when I was like I said, I was at the ashram, and I realized I believed there was something going on, and I wanted to get back involved. And I started practicing the law of attraction. I was lucky enough to have a little bit of Bitcoin I bought in 2017, and so I took that Bitcoin. I went to Hawaii. I rented a place. I've been to Hawaii before. I believe Hawaii has a lot of magical. It's a very supernatural place. So, that's just my own little superstition, I guess. But I went to Hawaii, and I started, applying these principles. So I started expressing gratitude or thinking about where I wanted to be, visualizing where I wanted to be, and then bringing up the emotion of gratitude as if I was already there, and then putting things into action. So what did I do into action? Well, at first I was like, what am I going to do? Because I would have been content just sweeping the floor somewhere to help out. I just wanted to be involved. I just wanted to serve. I still had a lot of self-doubts at the time as to my own talents, but I said, okay, well, what do you want to do? And the answer I came up with was do what you love to do. You know, that seemed like the right answer. Well, what do you love to do? Do what you love to do. Well, I've been making these videos since I was literally a kid. First thing I ever did is I did a documentary of the dinosaurs in my sandbox when I was 9 years old with a Super 8 camera and the help of my parents as a production team. And in high school, I was doing this, and then I've been doing it, but I never had, I didn't really have the confidence, so I never really actually thought I'd be doing that. I just started doing it for the magic, right? You have to do thought, emotion, and action. So I started making videos on YouTube. No one ever watched them, but I would do them 5 nights a week. And once again, like I said, I didn't assume I was going to be doing videos where I ended up. I just was doing what I love to do. Even when I got the job at InfoWars, I was hired on to do editing, things. And doing reports was a total side thing. It was basically like, and if you have any time for reports, do reports. I started doing reports just because I love doing it. And then the more you do, like I said, I believe God wants you to be happy and to experience expansion and love. So do what you love to do, whatever that is. That's the in my experience, that's how you find your niche. That's how you find your path. And so, yeah, I love doing this. And so when you love doing something, you know, I love the story of the samurai because the way I interpret the story of the samurai is find a craft that you're passionate about and that you love doing, and make your life about mastery. Make it about every day is another opportunity to become better at this thing that you love to do. And that's your contribution to the world. And I believe everyone has that in them. And it's a great way to live. You know, now I'm at the point now where all I do is my reports. And I don't work at the headquarters anymore. I work on my own. And I have a very unique job. InfoWars is a very unique place. I was literally like
I'm sure.
my first day there.
I'm sure it's a very unique place.
By Rob Dew, I was told, pick a story you think is important, do your best to tell the truth, and then upload it. And here's the login and credentials to upload. And then my first question was, well, wait a second, don't I have to like run this by someone first, you know? And then he kind of looked at me with an annoyed expression and was like, we don't have time for that. Just do it, you know? So I literally do whatever I want, and I don't run it by anyone, and I upload it. And it's an incredible dream life. Like, once again, this is why I have so much gratitude. And so that's where I think the answer lies, is follow your heart, you know, do what you love to do. I'll be honest, it seemed silly, the idea of making videos. Now it makes sense. Of course, make videos, you know, it's obvious, but because it was so close to me and because I loved it so much, it didn't seem realistic. It seemed like I was just being selfish almost, you know, like, oh, what do you think? You're just going to do what you love to do the most. And yeah, I think that's it. In my experience, that's it.
Think about how beautiful and elegant and simplistic that is. We are helping to get the word out there to other people about the truth regarding what is going on this planet, regarding what the solution to the problem of tyranny and slavery is, and do it in a way that we enjoy doing it, as far as putting out media out into the world with our aesthetics and visuals and our particular styling applied, and, you know, add our voice to that. And, you know, and we're fulfilling an important moral obligation to speak the truth out into the world for others to hear. That is the great work in its most essential form. And it could take many artistic forms. It could take many creative forms, but ultimately it's learn the truth and then speak the truth. It doesn't get any simpler than that, folks. It's not as complicated as many people want to make it out to be. So, Greg, I want to absolutely thank you for your great thoughts and responses to my questions, because you've given our listening audience a lot of information to chew on there and a lot to be inspired by. So what do you say in the 20 minutes or so remaining, we take a few listener phone calls?
Sure.
All right, great.
I'd also like to say that I'd love to consider collaborating in the future.
Absolutely. I would love to have you on One Great Work Network. Not want to put you onto the spot to respond right away, but I'll send you a formal introductory email to ask if you want to be a part of it, and we could go from there. But yeah, absolutely. It would be awesome to collaborate with you in any form that may take in the future. I would love it. All right, let's go to the phone lines and let's hear from Mark. Mark, you're live on What on Earth is Happening with our special guest, Greg Reese of InfoWars and Band.video. Please go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
Hello, I'm very new. I'm from France.
Okay.
And I'm trying to translate your video in French, because French people do not access to this content, and I feel it's necessary to extend the view of the crisis to your position. I'm sorry to have rushed in very late, and I'm ready to work with you to make the people understand how much the occult is important to the reading of the situation.
Exactly. Greg, what do you have to say to an aspiring young content creator that is beginning in this field of endeavor and doesn't maybe quite know where to start? Your advice to Mark here.
Well, it sounds like I've seen some of my videos translated in other languages. That's probably a great play, and I love that. I've had some people ask permission for that. I'm like, yeah, of course. And that's what it's all about. If you're talking about translating into French, I think that's probably a great place to start with Mark's videos or my videos or any video. It's all about getting the information out there, and it's really all about putting yourself in action. Once you start doing it, there's a saying, I'm probably getting it wrong, but something like take one step towards God and God will take, I don't know how many steps towards you, a bunch more than one or whatever. But once you start moving with intention, God will show up and make things easy, and your path will just unfold before you. That's my experience.
I absolutely agree. The answer is in whatever way that you feel you are capable of helping and giving assistance and adding your voice as well. Don't wait for anybody's orders. Just go and do it. Just begin. Just start doing it. Pick something that that you're at least somewhat decent at doing, and just go from there, and you'll get better as you go. It's one of the steps, one of the tenets of the How to Become the True Media course is don't wait to get it perfect. Just create something that's decent and then improve upon things as you go along. When Greg and I began putting out media, we certainly didn't have our level of understanding that we have now. We weren't as good at it. And nobody's perfect the first time. Nobody is even really great the first time. Just put something out that's good. Don't let perfection, the aspiration toward perfection, get in the way of putting out something that is good. Just put something out that is good, and you can go from there. And you can get better and better at doing it as you go along. So, Mark, thank you for that. And in whatever future endeavors that you go into in content creation, again, I think, as Greg said, translating material is awesome because we have to get this out to everybody in the world, not just people who are English speaking. So translation is awesome. For me, I say no permission is required. Any material that I've put out publicly, if anybody wants to translate it into any language and repost it, you are free to do that. I do not maintain any rigid restrictions on my material like that. And as long as you are keeping the content intact and not taking it wildly out of context, go ahead and translate widely and freely into whatever language you want. Greg, is that also your position on your work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And a band.video, that's why we have the download function where you can download any video off of band.video. Alex makes it very clear that we encourage people to
Excellent.
do that.
Excellent. I think that's the absolute correct approach when it comes to content creators, to allow people to just translate into any language that they want. So that's awesome. Let's hear from a content creator on One Great Work Network who's calling in today, Chris Jansen. Chris Jansen of End Evil, you're live on What on Earth is Happening with our special guest, Greg Reese.
Hey,
how you doing, Chris? Yes, you're coming in loud and clear.
I'm doing great. I'm feeling really inspired. I really appreciated this conversation with Greg. It's really good to hear his point of view. And I was really inspired because I also come from, Christianity was my background where I grew up in. And I've been doing some of my recent work on that topic. So it was pretty cool to hear what you guys had to say. And I just had one little comment I wanted to pop off with. One point, Mark, you said the creator is cosmic law.
Right.
And I found that, and you went on to say, the creator is also truth. But recently I've been thinking like reality is morality.
Right.
And that's the core principle, the foundation of this whole thing. And people get lost in all these details and storylines, but that's the more real thing. It's like what we're experiencing is the piece of paper coming out of the printer.
Right.
You can't change that. It's already come out. That's the physical world.
You got to change it where you arranged it, where you typed it in, in the input stage. I think it's a very profound thing that you said there regarding that everything ultimately comes down to morality. That's the principle of care, right? What I've termed the lost principle. If we don't have the care to determine what correct morality is and care enough to align our behavior to it, to make sure that we are right, then we're not doing what we're here to do. We're shirking our personal responsibility. That's why I think it's such a beautiful, elegant understanding. The solution, when you finally do grasp it, it's such a mind exploding aha moment that you're like, it can't be that simple. But yes, it is. The problem is just not enough people have come to the same awakening, have not come to the same recognition. And that's what our job as content creators is to do. Greg, your take on what Chris just put out there and my addendum to it of, it's all about communicating objective morality to human beings and getting them to learn it and embrace it in their lives and align their behavior to it.
Yeah, I agree completely. I like to use the word love quite a bit, and I say God is love. And ultimately, in my experience, that's what reality is it's either love or you're lost. And when you're lost, you're lost in illusion. You're lost in stories. You're lost in these beliefs. You're lost in the darkness, but none of it's real. And then what is real? Once you get over that, once you get over all the darkness in your past or get over your story, and then you find yourself left in a place of joy and contentment and love, and you start realizing that that's really what life is all about. And it's a beautiful situation. Like I said, there's really nothing to be mad about anymore. It can be frustrating because you want to see people experience that too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think
that's the thing is when you see people lost in a deep state of illusion, it's you feel compassionate to them because of how they've allowed their soul path to go off course and get wrapped up in something that is just completely untrue. And then they're latched onto it, and that frustration then, can turn to a lot of discontentment and anger as well. But, this is why I put at the footer of my website a phrase that people don't quite understand. And I've, heard people say, oh, is that new age nonsense? No, all is love. That's at the cosmic level. That's what there is. We're in a stage of illusion right now in our development as a species that we're not experiencing that. And yes, it is a mixed bag of what people experienced experience here on Earth. And it's not just all good things, but at the cosmic level, if we understand the nature of what the underlying nature of the whole reality, it is pure love. It is pure truth. It is pure law. And that is why at the bottom of my website, I say all is love, fear is illusion. You know, to the extent that people are not in the state of consciousness where they fully recognize objective truth, objective morality, the existence of natural law, and how that is the governing dynamic of human behavior in the aggregate. To the extent that they do not understand those things, they're in illusion. And to the extent that they do fully understand and integrate and align their behavior to those things, they're existing in a consciousness of love. And that's what I mean when I say the phrase cosmic love, because that's really the essential nature of all of reality.
The divine truth. Mark, it's so beautiful to hear you speak, and I always like the way you put things together. And I just think the other thing that really popped off for me was, you know, it's not like you ever get there. Like you're at the top of the mountain and you're done and you got it all figured out. It's like life just keeps giving you more opportunities to re-understand this thing and be conscious, like you said, be in the moment and be real.
There will always be another challenge on the horizon, for sure. And that's what we have to keep in mind, that we have to continuously renew ourselves and be up for new challenges as well.
Yeah, and it's just so cool to see, you know, like you guys, I feel really like lucky to be able to talk to people of your caliber that have these understandings, and that's our opportunity to keep everybody watching, for them to keep re-realizing the importance of every moment. We all have to keep re-realizing this and keep trying to refigure it out, because everything's changing
and
around
us. Don't slip backwards into
and
illusion. The instant a new psyop is triggered, you know, they pull the trigger on a brand new one. Chris, I'll plug your material and your website, and then we'll move on to another caller.
Right on. Thanks so much. EndEvil.life's the website, and we do Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern stream, where everybody can join in the chat. And thanks so much for the opportunity to talk to you guys. Good to meet you, Greg. Have a great one, guys.
Have a great day.
All right.
Awesome. Chris Jansen of End Evil, endevil.live. Check it out. Let's hear from AJ, a student from the How to Become the True Media seminar. AJ, you're live on What on Earth is Happening with our very special guest, Greg Reese of InfoWars and Band.video. Welcome to the show. AJ, we're not hearing you. There you go.
Can
there
you
you
hear
go.
me okay?
You're coming through loud and clear now.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to say this is an amazing interview. Greg, I've followed you since you've been on InfoWars. And of course, I've followed a lot of the team there for a long time. And it was probably 10 plus years ago that I saw Mark, and he kept coming into my world. He just kept coming in and kept coming in. I took his class this year, and I've learned so much. And I'm doing deep dives on a lot of stuff because I'm trying to put a project together. And I tend to be very analytical and very intellectual. You know, I love the facts of stuff. And one of the things that you both mentioned, or Mark did, was about how we can bridge the gap between the fervent religiosity that's going on in so millions and millions of people all over the world. And one of the things that I think would help bridge that is to discuss what objective reality really means, because, you know, natural law are the immutable laws of our realm, our universe, our world here. And when we can get it simple and basic, I think that that's going to really blow a lot of egos up. And, you know, because the ego, we've all had a really tough time getting to where we are at this moment in this day. And what I'm finding is that understanding those principles has made life so much easier. And it almost has put my ego not on a back seat. You need to have you have to have your ego for social defense,
Right.
of course, but it's not where I'm sitting on my laurels. I'm looking at, the accolades, or, I know that no one's going to watch my first presentation. I'm not worried about it. What I'm thinking about is that that's okay that no one does watch it when I finally get it done, because I'm in the middle of doing it. So I just wanted to say that objective reality regarding natural law and those immutable laws that are in our realm, our world, our universe now, make things so much easier, so that you don't have to deal with the egos. And then when everybody's egos flattened, it seems like we can connect instead of connecting to a role or a legacy or a legend or whatever somebody might be. It's getting down to the person. Anyway, I yield, and I appreciate you letting me talk. And this has been a fantastic interview. Thank you so
AJ,
much.
thank you so much. Greg, your take on what AJ just brought forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. At first, of course, it doesn't matter if anyone's like seeing what you're doing or watching what you're doing. It's really about the you putting the action out there. We live in a magical world. I don't even know where we are. I'm not exactly sure what any of this is, but that's why it's important to focus on what we do know, the natural laws. While you were talking, I started thinking that, what is it? 80-90% of the world's population is religious. I don't think it's possible to try to steer people away from their religion, nor is it important. One of my favorite things is, like I was saying before, is comparative religion. Find commonalities instead of the differences. If you search online, like the Golden Rule, you can easily find this meme that shows how, I've seen it before. I've seen up to like a dozen different religions representative, and each one has their version of the Golden Rule, which is basically the most simple way of looking at natural law. So somehow, and maybe that comes back to just love and openness is the way to encourage people to, rather than seek out differences, just start looking for similarities.
And whatever you do, don't give up. Just keep moving forward. Keep putting out content, because yes, while it may be true that not a gigantic audience will immediately inundate whatever video upload service you end up uploading your first video to, maybe after you do 20, there will be a huge audience there. Maybe after you do even 10. So don't immediately think, hey, nobody's going to be checking out this material. You have to have the attitude of persistence, and there does need to be a modicum of patience involved in building a following for your content. So it will happen. Just don't give up and keep moving that forward. That's one of the most important tenets that I teach in How to Become the True Media. Greg, your take on that, because a lot of content creators tend to get discouraged, and they feel like they're not building enough of a following or an audience, especially quickly or right at first. Your take that it's just very important to stay the course and keep moving forward and keep just doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely. The stuff I was doing in Hawaii, I just actually revisited it recently, and it's like those got maybe 30, 40 hits on each one. I've done some work like the first couple of years of InfoWars. Some of the videos that I think are the best videos I made, I've gone back and looked at, and they still haven't had that many views compared to what I've been getting lately. What I found is that there is always, and you were right for saying that the ego it's not a bad thing. We need it for a lot of things. And so that's part of making these videos involves some ego. And what I found is the more I can let go of my ego and trust God, the better I am. And because you just can't, you can't listen to, you have to listen to yourself to a certain extent, but you have to let go. Like for example, the videos, typically the videos that I think are my best videos turn out to not be that popular. And the ones that I think are crap, like where I'm literally like uploading this video, I'm like, well, this fucking sucks. Excuse my language. Those turn out to be some of the best ones I do. So what I've learned is really just to let go and and do the
Greg,
work.
that's a perfect
focus on the word.
That's a perfect place to leave it. Unfortunately, we are out of time for this episode of What on Earth is Happening. Thank you so much to my very special guest, Greg Reese. Check out his work at InfoWars and Band.video. Go to his channel on Band.video. Tremendous videos up there. Greg, thank you so much for being on What on Earth is Happening. I'd love to collaborate with you in some ways in the very near future. I'll see you next week, folks. Tune in for the next episode of What on Earth is Happening. Government is slavery. See you here next week.
Wow. Well. I think I'm going to do this every week. Maybe have some people to laugh with. Yeah, I should probably do this once a week just for half. Anyway, I'm going to end this.